The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
I saw a pale horse.
The beast.
We're told in the book of Revelation.
This is not a human child.
Isn't an angel Satan?
Armageddon is almost upon us.
Order the use of nuclear weapons.
The world is a fine place and worth fighting for.
From one end of the world to the other, I will oppose you.
They're here.
Welcome to the end of the world.
Wrestling not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. This is P.I.D. Radio.
Heart of the Missouri Ozarks. It's P.I.D. Radio for the first time in 18 months. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
Oh, I'm Sharon Gilbert. 18 months. Oh, that's 666.
It is.
Ooh, which is appropriate because that's what we're going to talk about.
Whoa, we got a lot of stuff to catch up on.
So many things. We decided that this is Sunday, the weekend of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, December 1st, 2019.
Yeah, can you believe that? Can you believe that? I mean, it's December 1st. We normally would record Gilbert House Fellowship, and we decided that we weren't going to do Sci Friday, Unraveling Revelation, or Gilbert House this weekend, so we could just relax and read.
Yeah, we're doing some heavy research this weekend for some projects that'll be coming out in 2020.
In fact, the research is so heavy. I looked at Derek and I said, we've just researched a PID radio episode.
Yeah. So here we are.
Here we are. Happy Thanksgiving.
Pray that you are having a blessed Thanksgiving weekend and enjoying time with friends or family or both. But as we've been digging into things, just a reminder that we're in the middle of a supernatural war. And, not to be the rain on your Thanksgiving Day parade or anything like that, but just thought, well, let's talk about what we've been reading and researching, things we're looking forward to in 2020, just the kind of thing we used to do in PID Radio, which we now do in various outlets. Because what we do on PID Radio, we do on Sci Friday, the Bible study aspect, Gilbert House Fellowship, and
we write about
Unraveling Revelation, and what we're writing. So that's kind of why PID Radio has been on hiatus for the last 18 months. It's not that we got tired of doing it. It's just that we're doing more of it in different places.
Exactly. I put it into fiction form in the Red Wing Saga series, and Derek and I just recently co-authored a book called Veneration, and that is taking all the things that we learned in PID Radio and putting it into the research and laying out why the ancient veneration practices are echoed today and why.
Yeah. Put it into a nutshell, it's essentially the who, what, when, where, and why of the Nephilim.
Hey, there's your elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Let's go find an elevator. Or for those living in Europe, go find a lift.
That's it. That sounds kind of sensationalized, but that's essentially what it is. The spirits of the giants who were the Nephilim, the progeny of the Watchers who rebelled against God and crossed the species boundary to mate with humans, have been, their sin has inflicted pain and suffering on humanity for thousands of years.
Oh, yes.
And, God bless the men and women like Steve Quayle, Tom Horn, L.A. Marzulli, who've been searching for physical evidence of the giants. We decided not to retrace their steps. And in Veneration, we cover the spiritual aspect of this, things that we document from ancient texts.
And that really goes back to PID Radio. If you are if this is the first PID Radio you have ever listened to because you recently found us on Skywatch TV or you've read some of our books and hey, look, they've got this podcast out there. Let me go listen to it. PID stands for Peering into Darkness. Derek and I started this. Well, it'll be 15 years next March.
That's right. We were very early into podcasting. In fact, the code for podcasting, the RSS code, or the XML code for the RSS feeds, only had been developed in, I think, October of 2014. So we were less than a year after the code had even been developed by Dave Weiner and Adam Curry. So we entered the iTunes store at a time when Apple was still actively soliciting podcasters.
Oh, they were happy to have us. And there for a long stretch, weeks and weeks, we were in the top listening category, beating out some of the major news outlets simply because there was a hunger out there to learn more about the occult and how it's affecting our lives, especially the lives of our children and grandchildren.
Yeah. So we were early on in this game, but as time progressed and we became associated with others in this alternative Christian, this milieu, like Tom Horn, milieu. No,
he says Malou.
Malou, that's right.
I love him. And he does that intentionally. He knows how to pronounce the word.
Tom likes to put on this act. It's like he calls himself, I'm just an old fat country preacher. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got a mind like a steel trap.
He really does.
Yeah. So getting associated with him, with Steve Quayle, L.A. Marzulli, Russ Dizdar, and so forth, we now do this full time. Mm-hmm. And so we've got other outlets.
Thank you, Lord.
Amen to that. Amen. So PID Radio kind of went on hiatus, but all of our archives going back to 2005 are still available online, free of charge. You can find those linked at PID Radio. You can find our page on Spreaker, Spreaker.com. And from there, we've got a dashboard with our 3 podcasts, the Gilbert House Fellowship, which is our Bible study, PID Radio, of course, and then my interview podcast, A View from the Bunker, which goes back to 2009. That's on 10 years now. In fact, we passed 10 years, and I missed it.
Oh, my goodness, we didn't celebrate.
No.
Oh, well, happy 10th. Happy 10th and a half.
Well, that's it. And we're coming up on 10 years of that and 15 years of PID Radio.
Long time. And in those archives, you're going to find some amazing interviews. The late David Flynn, Dave Duncan. And we've not heard from him.
Stuff.
We're assuming that he's passed on to be with the Lord.
Right.
Gosh, who else is on there? Russ Dizdar lots, Tom Horn. Mm-hmm. Did we ever talk to L.A. Marzulli?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah.
A View from the Bunker.
Well, absolutely. But we did some interviews with PID Radio, too, early on.
Mike Heiser, of course. Stan Deo.
Stan Deo, yes. There are lots and lots of them in there.
William H. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
So,
the late William H. Kennedy. He's much missed.
A number of very deep topics that we covered early on, and some things that really we almost have kind of put them behind us almost, and not intentionally. It's just because there's so much out there to dig into that sometimes we'll go back and look at our old notes and, wow, I'd forgotten that I knew that. For example, we did a program once on the octopus.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a name given to the deep, if you want to call it.
The deep state.
Yeah, the deep, what Colonel McGinnis would call the deep Earth state, behind the murder of Danny Casolaro, is an investigative journalist.
Exactly.
Its connections to the Cabazon Indian Reservation, Indio, California, and through
to the Temple of Set.
To
the Process Church.
Michael Riconosciuto.
Well, Riconosciuto, and even to, if you keep going, you get to Charles Manson. And
the Kennedy assassination, and intelligence community stuff, and
once you start
the Circle by
yes, the Circle, yes,
Cherie Seymour,
yeah,
and
that's a disturbing read.
It really is, because in that you find the CIA or the intelligence asset. I don't know if he's CIA, but named Nichols, Robert Booth Nichols, who literally referred to those in his circle as chosen ones.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which is a term that we get from Russ Dizdar in the Black Awakening.
But did you know that chosen ones is also used by the what do they call themselves? Fraternitatis Saturni.
Yeah.
The FS.
Right. And that's some research that's coming this weekend, which kind of brings it full circle back to where we are this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
One of the projects that we're working, we've got a couple projects for next year, but one that I've been working on for a while because it relates to the stuff in Last Clash of the Titans, is the old God, or the God, as he was referred to in the ancient world. And this is
not Yahweh. This is the pagan God.
Right. We're talking about the pagan world now.
The head of the Infernal Council.
Mm-hmm. The one who would be king.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we don't mean Satan. I think this is another entity. Although some identify him as Satan, it could be.
We're looking that he became in the New Testament, that Jesus referred to him as the adversary.
And the reason I think that he's not is that I believe this entity was the leader of the rebellion on Mount Hermon. And so I think he is now in Tartarus with the rest of his associates until the end when they come out.
And I agree with you.
So this entity, many different names in the ancient world, El or Enlil, which some scholars now, I think, and I agree, point back to El, which became the generic term in Hebrew and Semitic languages for God.
Or Lord.
God. Ilu in Akkadian, but Ilu, the etymology of the Sumerian god Enlil. I'm giving you too much detail here. Bottom line, Saturn, Kronos, Baal-Haman, Dagan, El, Enlil, Kumarbi of the Hittites and Hurrians, all the same entity. Saturn being the key name. So doing research on this entity, because on the internet you can find research into a modern cult of Saturn. Remember, in Greek and Roman mythology, he was the entity replaced the sky god by castrating his father, Uranos, or Kalos to the Romans, from which we get the word celestial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was prophesied by the earth goddess Gaia that he would be overthrown by his children. So he ate his children. Not a surprise then. In fact, even ancient Greek historians pointed this out with the Phoenicians, Baal-Haman, their version of this god, and the Phoenician practice of sacrificing children, pointing out, saying, well, since they're worshiping the god who ate his children, it's not a surprise that they're doing the same thing. Well, look at America today.
Yeah.
How many, look at the world today.
Feeding our children to
Yes.
a deity.
Right. Molech may be another iteration of this, or Molech may simply be a mistranslation of the Semitic word melech, meaning king. And again, another god who demanded child sacrifice. So how is this manifesting in the world today? A lot of the research out there is internet-level research, but it turns out that there is a secret society formed 1926, officially launched Easter Sunday, 1928.
Because they believed that that's when their homunculus would be born.
Right.
On Easter. And that goes back to the idea of Ostara, the Teutonic goddess, who was the goddess of fertility.
Right. And there's not much known about this organization, the Fraternitas Saturni, or Brotherhood of Saturn, because it's in German. It's you got to speak German to get in today, to this day. If you're not a German speaker, you don't get in. That's just it. So we English speakers have kind of ignored this group, and we focus on Aleister Crowley and his acolytes. The thing is, this group was founded by acolytes of Crowley.
Exactly, and that's why you cannot dismiss Crowley.
Right.
Derek and I are researching for a future project that is looking at the roots of Aleister Crowley, what he came out of, and how he's affected everything in the 20th and 21st centuries. Right,
but apparently this Brotherhood of Saturn has been very influential in the modern New Age movement. A lot of concepts that are taken for granted in the New Age actually come out of the Fraternitas Saturni. And so that is the missing link in this book that I was planning to write about Saturn, going back to Virgil's Eclogue, his fourth Eclogue, where he talks about justice returns, old Saturn's reign with a new breed of man sent down from heaven. Okay, well, that's the modern transhumanist movement in a sense, the New Age movement as well. Where did they get that idea? Well, turns out it comes back to this Brotherhood of Saturn. And their holiest day of the year, interestingly, because like everything else that comes from the infernal realm, it's a copy. It's a poor copy, a poor carbon copy of what God himself has created. Their holiest day of the year is not Easter Sunday. It's actually Good Saturday, when it's believed that Jesus was their take on Christian, what they call Christian lore, when Jesus was preaching to the righteous pagans in the nether realm. Well, no, when Jesus was down in the nether realm, during those 3 days, according to Peter, 1 Peter 3, 19 and 20, I think it's 1 Peter 3, 19, he was proclaiming to the spirits in prison. He was proclaiming to Saturn, Kronos, same entity, different names, and his colleagues, basically saying, I'm getting out of here, and you're still dead. Credit to Mike Heiser for that paraphrase. But but these people in this Brotherhood of Saturn believe that that's when their entity is at its strongest. They view what they call the Gotos, Gotos, which is an idol that they have in each of their lodges.
It's actually an acronym.
Right. Yeah. And I don't even remember what the acronym stands for. But it's like the ancient concept of the idol. It's sort of like a spiritual receiver for the power of the entity.
It's a type of homunculus, which just means a copy of mankind.
And they believe,
or I think another term for it is simulacra.
They believe it's like a spiritual battery, that gets charged up by the thoughts and the meditation of the faithful.
And it has to be anointed.
Yeah, with various fluids that we won't discuss here.
Bodily fluids, we'll just put it that way.
So anyway, that's kind of the missing piece of that book that will come out, God willing, in 2020. Need to do more research on it. But the book that we're reading on this is based on their documents, which were released by a former leader of the group who probably shouldn't have done, according to their own rules, what he did.
Yeah, you die if you release that information.
Yeah. So anyway, that's an interesting bit of research that kind of fits into what we see happening in the world today. There are dark powers out there, people trying to harness it without realizing that they're actually just useful idiots.
Yeah. I took a look at some FBI documents on a person who was claiming that he had a right to stay in the United States, a German citizen who said he had escaped in 1936 from Germany, and he was claiming asylum here. It was in the 50s. No, 46. It was 1946. 43 and 46, those 2 years, but 46 was the big one. And you have all these notes in this FBI document, whether or not he should be allowed, and he claimed to be a member of the Fraternity Saturni.
Ah, okay. That group was outlawed by the Nazi regime in 1936,
yes,
along with a lot of other occult organizations.
Yes, but he was coming over here to plant it.
Yeah. They scattered and planted branches around the world. The founder, who went by the name of Gregor A. Gregorius, because this homunculus they called the egregor.
A watcher.
Yes.
That's Greek for watcher.
Exactly right. Which Saturn, Kronos, was. The only occultists who got to stick around in Germany were the ones who managed to ingratiate themselves to Himmler and the SS and others who were close to Hitler. Because as Peter Levenda, I think, makes a really good case that the Nazi Party was not a political party as much as it was a cult. And so a lot of occultists and occult teachings in the Nazi Party, but they just eliminated anybody that they thought was a threat, and the FS was one of those groups. Freemasons, out.
I don't know how accurate this is, but I watched a documentary recently about the infiltration of the United States in the early 20th century by British intelligence, which set up trying to control the United States, whether or not we would enter World Wars I and II. And these assets were working with various astrologers and magicians, and Crowley was one of them. And I can't remember the name of the gentleman who was working with him over here. It's a well-known astrologer. I, again, can't think of the name, so I don't want to have a mistake here. But he apparently was forecasting things that would happen, and then they did happen, and it made all of the newspapers. But the reason it did happen is because that's what the government told him would happen.
Ah, okay.
However, here's the thing. It didn't necessarily happen. One of them had to do with the suicide of a South American leader. That never happened. But the newspapers reported it as having happened, and that this astrologer was correct. Well, he also predicted something about Germany, and Hitler fell for it.
Ah, okay.
That's why Hitler came down on all of the astrologers and all of these occult groups. He was afraid that he was being used by them. He didn't want to be a pawn again. Gotcha. He felt pretty foolish after it, according to this documentary. I don't know how much of that really did affect his decision to do that, but prior to that, he'd been friendly to these organizations. Yeah, interesting. That you would think that by the time you get to the 20th century that we were in an age of enlightenment and reason and rational thought, and when you look at what actually was going on in World War I and World War II and the use of people like Crowley, and even after World War II, when we brought the Nazi scientists over and the CIA began mind control experiments, which really included a lot of spiritual stuff. Levenda makes the case that we essentially tried to weaponize the spirit realm, creating demonically empowered Manchurian candidates through dissociative programming. And that's what Russ Dizdar discusses.
Yes.
And has been for years. In fact, his people, as you say, call themselves the Chosen One and a Chosen One. And They often have multiple personalities.
Mm-hmm.
One of them almost always speaks German.
Really curious that that's the case, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And really curious, too, that the significance of the black sun in the SS,
Mm-hmm.
which really is Saturn when you get down to it.
Yes.
And yet they kicked out the Brotherhood of Saturn. Maybe because they didn't want to go along with the program.
I don't know. Again, if the documentary is correct, then Hitler just felt he'd been played and didn't want to play the fool again. But it could be that there were other things going on. I doubt that they were ever thoroughly kicked out, even the ones that did not befriend Himmler, because that sort of stuff has deep roots.
It truly does. The spirit realm will use any willing vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get down to it, I think that's what these rituals are all about. It's not about saying the right words or doing the right thing. It's about you're giving permission to these entities.
Exactly.
This is how you're demonstrating opening the door.
This is why I believe that the folklore that a vampire cannot come into your home until you invite him in. Your home is your body,
Mm-hmm.
your spirit realm, your inner being. And when you use your free will to say yes by speaking these rituals, speaking these spells, and this is the kind of thing that kids do all the time. They don't realize the danger they're in when they do this because they are inviting in entities that will then start to lie to them.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's why I think texts like the Necronomicon, which was invented by the horror fiction author H.P. Lovecraft in the 1920s for his series of short stories, why when a Necronomicon was published in the late 70s, and bringing Peter Levenda into this again, it's in all likelihood the evidence points to Levenda as being the guy who actually put this together, but a collection of Babylonian texts, ancient Babylonian texts, which, you know, you can find that stuff posted online now. Archaeologists are posting their research all over the place.
Look, if you read those things, it doesn't matter if they're genuine or not. If you read them believing that the spirit world will do this, then they'll use that as the door to get in.
Exactly. In my view, if you read the telephone directory with the belief that somehow that will invite the spirit realm in, you're essentially giving permission to the spirit realm to come in, and it will come in.
It's all free will.
Right. So it's not a matter of unlocking the door with the right words. It's the fact that you're giving them spiritual permission by asking for it.
Well, let me tell you something that's going on in the world today that is an echo of these deep state things, these deeper occult state things. A couple of stories coming out of the UK that have to do with sheep. There are flocks in New Forest that have been found stabbed and sprayed with occult symbols. And just today, this is very recently, and these events have taken place more than once. The disturbing thing about that, the story in New Forest, is that the locals have decided to consult with white witches in order to combat the black witchcraft that's going on.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
Wrong answer.
Both puppets from the same spirit.
Right. Wrong answer.
Yeah, exactly. No, you need to bring in Christians. You need to bring in genuine faith. You need to bring in a representative who is armed with the Ephesians 6 warfare kit.
Mm-hmm. This is something that pops up on the radar from time to time, and we've discussed this over the past 15 years on PID Radio, even with mutilated cats showing up in city parks.
And dogs. Remember the German Shepherd deaths that were all pointing back to the processed church?
Right. But even recently, about 2 months ago in October, I was on Skywatch TV, talked about the cattle mutilations that have been ongoing in Oregon. 5 young purebred bulls mysteriously showed up dead on the ranch this past summer. This would be 2019. Drained of blood and with body parts precisely removed. Ranch's vice president said that, basically showed a reporter from NPR around the scene, and it is really bizarre. I mean, it looks like somebody dropped a bull costume in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I've actually seen that photograph before. This sounds like an occult.
It truly does.
Yeah, they're harvesting materials for some sort of sacrifice. Within not only the Fraternatis Saturni, but also in other secret cults, and I refer to this in the Red Wing Saga, there are beliefs that you can create things that are called mandragora candles. And you take a hanged man, and if he's been hanged at the crossroads, that's even better. You take his fat, you render it down, you make your candle out of that, you take his, I think it's his left hand that you have to lop off the body, and then you put the candle in that hand. And it will help you in your occult services, your rituals. There are a lot of things that have to do with hanged individuals, and I'm bringing this up because hangings are often in the news, and you'll see them in clusters. We saw this back in the PID radio days in Wales.
Right.
And it was attributed to the economy.
Yeah, it's a poor area. They've got no hopes. And so these teenagers are hanging themselves. We talked to Russ Dizdar about that, in fact. Yeah. There are a number of strange things like that, like the disarticulated human legs and feet that are washing up on the west coast of the United States and Canada.
We've never figured out an answer to that. I don't think the police to this day know, but they're still washing up.
Yeah, the most recent one that I found was in February of this year. This happened in West Vancouver. Authorities found it said it belonged to a man under the age of 50. The weird thing about this, and there are, a couple of dozens of these? 15 since August of 2007, found in British Columbia, but a number of others have been found further down the coast on Seattle, west coast of Washington, and nobody has claimed to be, missing the limb, missing the foot.
And they're almost always wearing some sort of running shoe.
Right. This one was wearing a light gray Nike Free RN shoe with a black Nike swoosh logo and white base, men's size 9.5.
Yeah.
With an ortholite insert.
Yeah.
So pretty precise. You're right. Running shoes. And yet people aren't. Nobody is turning up in hospitals missing a leg, missing a foot. These disarticulated feet just showing up with these running shoes.
Isn't that well, getting back to animal mutilation and, even sacrifice, a story just this morning about, I think it was 4 or 5 teens, ages 13 to 15, male and female, who were caught throwing bricks at sheep. Again, we've got sheep. And they were pulling off their horns.
Oh.
Yes. The police who were called to the scene said it looked like a murder scene because there was so much blood in the area.
Yeah.
And the kids were laughing and saying that, hey, it won't kill them. They won't die. They seem to have no empathy at all for these animals. And one of the girls even told the policeman, I love animals.
Yeah. Squealing and in pain, apparently.
Apparently so. This is cruelty, but you have to remember that sheep are a symbol of Christianity.
Right. Weird connection here, but it just, thinking back to the research for Last Clash of the Titans, one of the aspects of the pagan gods in ancient Mesopotamia that was interesting is that they're often represented as wearing horned helmets.
Yes.
Or epithets that refer to bulls. The storm god, Baal, often represented with a bull or as a bull, but the creator god of the Canaanites, El, again, same entity as Saturn, Kronos, Enlil, Dagan, referred to as Bull El. Kronos, the name, derives from a Hebrew word meaning horns or horned one. But Dagan, who was the chief god of the Amorites who lived along the Euphrates River in Syria, and then later the Philistines, obviously from the Bible, Dagan was celebrated, worshipped in the city of Emar, which is in northern Syria near Aleppo, with a ceremony in the spring around the time of, the Passover, the spring New Year, with sacrifice of 70 lambs.
Instead of 70 bulls.
Right. 70,
which is what the Israelites
did. Later, right, when Moses, because this predates the Exodus, 70 lambs for Dagan and the 70 gods of the city, who represented all the other gods besides the chief god, Dagan. The Feast of Tabernacles, which is a fall festival on the 15th of Tishrei,
Yes.
70 bulls sacrificed over the 7 days, 13 on day 1, 12 on day 2, 11 on
That
day
is not coincidence.
It is not. And this was documented by a secular scholar who pointed this out, not a Christian with a dog or a Jew with a dog in the hunt. This was a secular archaeologist who pointed this out. So this was a reversal of that earlier, but yeah, that it was 70 lambs for this false god who would be king, who led this rebellion and is now in chains and utter darkness until the judgment. So
were they rams? Do you remember if they were all male? I
would have to look up the paper.
That would be the opposite of 70 bulls.
Right. I think it just said 70 lambs, but if you give me a minute here and I'll look this up.
Well, you do that. The idea of a horned one, that gets back into the FS, the Fraternatis Saturni, that they believe that this Gotos that they are conjuring up through their rituals manifests as Baphomet. And the pose that you see Baphomet in, and in their iconography, he's surrounded by she, because it's a very androgynous image. Apparently the person who founded this really he wasn't a hit with girls. So he thought, in my next life, I just don't want to be male or female. But he's surrounded by animals. Now, whether or not that represents the zodiac, I don't know. I'd have to do more research. But you see that same symbolism for Hernunos.
Right.
The horned one.
Right.
Who is worshipped in England as well as some other places.
Yeah.
Hernunos, we believe, if you read Tom Horn's work, it's very possible that CERN, Hernunos is spelled with a C, by the way, but it's pronounced CERN may actually be a shortened form of his name. Yeah.
And the etymology also derives back to Kronos and the horned one.
And CERN is built really close to an area that had a temple to Apollo.
I found the text.
Oh, good.
This is an English translation of the ancient text. It's for a festival called the Zukru, Zukru, which was and these offerings were sacrificed on the 14th of the month, which was the night of the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
And it's when the moon is coming into his powerful fullness.
Right. So the text reads, on the month...
And I said his because in antiquity, the moon was a male.
Right, yeah. In Mesopotamia, later it became female, because these entities are likely androgynous, can go either way. On the month of Sagmu, which means head of the year, Rosh Hashanah, first month of the year. On the month of Sagmu, on the 14th day, they offer 70 pure lambs provided by the king for all the 70 gods of the city of Imar. So it just says lambs. It does not say rams. Interestingly, though, the festival of Sukkot, Tabernacles, does require rams to be sacrificed. On day 1, 13 bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs, and 1 goat. Day 2, it's 12 bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs, and 1 goat. And
over the course of it, it adds up to 70
bulls. But each of those days, you got 2 rams, 14 lambs, and a goat. And Passover, which would have corresponded to this ancient festival at the city of Imar for Dagan, the god.
14th of Nisan.
It would have been 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, and a goat each day. So you wind up over the 7-day festival, 14 bulls, 7 rams, 49 lambs, and 7 goats. So, but it appears to be a reversal of what the pagans had been taught was the proper way to sacrifice for their chief god. This idea of sacrifice, but the sacrifice, as it was practiced by the Israelites and presumably by the pagans in the ancient world, didn't involve torturing the animals like these kids are doing.
No, sacrificing an animal that you don't plan on feeding your family with, truly just sacrificing it, that's cruel.
Yeah.
That is, to me, that's cruel.
Right.
I know that if you're a vegan and you're listening to that, you're going killing any animal, for food but God gave us the animals for food.
Yeah.
After the flood, when there was no vegetation yet, the Lord gave us animals to eat.
And the attitude of these kids who were caught by police tormenting these sheep strikes me as similar to the way these fallen angels, watchers, treat humanity.
Yeah, they have no empathy.
No empathy. You're not like us. We don't care.
Monkeys.
Cause you pain doesn't matter. We don't care. And that's why you've got so many of these different secret societies who you would think if their true goal was to take down the throne of God, to overthrow God on his throne, they should all be working together. But they are not only in the spirit realm fighting with one another, they derive some sick, twisted pleasure at getting us to fight with one another, blood sacrifice, but also just enjoying the pain that we humans suffer.
Here's the big irony to that. They were trying to get mankind to be of one mind at a time when man had one language.
Yeah.
To do their bidding, to unlock Tartarus and let him out. If indeed that was the goal, and I think that probably was at least part of the goal. But the irony is that the fallen realm can't do that within themselves. God himself said of mankind having one language and all being of one mind, nothing is impossible for them. Well, guess what? If the fallen realm actually all did agree on a plan and implement it, it's possible that they could do so much more harm to our world than they are currently doing.
Yeah, which would prompt God to step in and stop it as he did before.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and maybe that's why they don't do it.
Sure.
Look what he did there. We're not doing that.
The flood of Noah and then at Babel, God would probably step in and stop it. So they're trying to, so it comes back to getting the humans to grant permission.
And I believe that this will finally happen at the Battle of Armageddon. They will finally get all of their little human slave bots to do their bidding. Every spirit will agree we're going to do this because it's us against him. He's coming back and we have to stop it.
The Revelation 19 war, not Revelation 19:19, Russ Dizdar talks about. Well, I think you're right. I think that the goal, as I understand it, from my limited reading on this Brotherhood of Satan and other aspects of the occult realm, the chaos magicians.
Oh, and chaos magic is so big right now.
Right. And it's drawing in, or their attempt to draw in, the spirit of chaos, which is Leviathan, the primordial chaos monster.
Yes.
Could be their way of not just returning everything to chaos, but at least bringing enough chaos that they can create order from that chaos, which is how they get us all of one mind, those of us that are left on Earth, to try to agree to go to war against God. You're miserable. God has destroyed the earth. Look at this. You've got flaming hailstones coming from the sky and earthquakes in diverse places. It's his fault.
And still they will not call upon the Lord.
Right.
Instead, they curse his name and if nothing else, hide me. Rocks fall on me. Hide me.
Yeah. And when these watchers are actually released from the abyss, which is what happens in Revelation chapter 9, people will seek death, but it will flee from them. Hey, transhumanists, guess what?
Oh, yeah. Hey, here's a question, and I don't have an answer for it, but it's one if you've never considered it, listener. Who are the four angels bound in the river Euphrates?
That's
bound
a
in the river.
Really good question. Could speculate now the angels who sinned in Peter and in Jude. And the only reference we got there is the reference back to Genesis 6. So you'd assume that the watchers of Genesis 6 are the ones referred to there. But who else would be bound in the river Euphrates?
Well, that's the question. Why pick out four for a special prison?
That's a really good question. I mean, I would have guessed Dagan being one of those because his chief cities were at, if you look at a map of Syria, the cities that were holiest to Dagan, one at the north end of the river there near the modern city of Raqqa, and the other one near the Syrian border with Iraq, ancient city called Zirka. But if he's equated with El, Enlil, Kumarbi, Saturn, then he's in the abyss. So I don't know.
No, me neither.
We don't know.
I just think it's one of those puzzles that we may not get an answer to until we're actually watching it take place from the Lord's throne.
I did think it was really curious that the Islamic State's core territory was along the Euphrates River, close to these ancient cities. Their headquarters, their capital city was Raqqa, which was close to the ancient city of Tutul, Tuttul, Tutul, which is mentioned in a Ugaritic text there's a snake bite incantation, where you send a message to Dagan of Tutul. But there was another temple to him that was very important near the city of Mari, which was a very important city in the ancient world during the time of the patriarchs. And in fact, that was the city, I think it was Zerka. I'm probably remembering wrong now. But anyway, a temple to Dagan there were the clubs that Baal supposedly used to crush the god of the sea.
Yes.
Were sent from Aleppo, which was Baal's home city, to this temple of Dagan, which, politically speaking, was probably a move saying, I'm the king now. You're not the king anymore. Okay, yes, Baal is described in some of these texts as son of Dagan, but you're not the king. I'm the king. Here, you can have my clubs for a little while, which is fascinating for a couple of reasons. The political, infighting between these various kingdoms. Well, look, Hadad, Baal, is my sponsor, and so we're more powerful than you. Mm-hmm. But we'll loan you these symbols of his power for your own purposes. But also that these things were physical objects that they believed had this power.
Here's Thor's hammer.
Yes. I mean, it would be just like that.
Exactly.
Or Arthur's sword in a more modern context. Yeah. Here's Thor's hammer. That's a really good analogy. So, but again, that region along the Euphrates was the core of where Dagan was worshipped. And later it was spelled with 2 A's earlier on. Later on, the Philistines changed the pronunciation Dagon. But, and remember, Dagan, not a fish god.
Remember, too, that there weren't any vowels in these. It was just consonants. And so you have to sort of guess
consonants
as to what
or little pictures.
Yeah.
Little hash marks made by the end of a reed in soft clay. Yeah. So anyway.
Which are hard to read when they've been in the ground for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing that any of those survived. I know they baked the tablets to preserve them, but, over years. I mean, clay was not meant to stay, it was not meant for long-term
storage.
Stone
does better.
Right. But some of those tablets that have been found were discovered because the building they were in was burned when the city was destroyed. And so that fired them and then buried them in rubble so they weren't exposed to water anymore.
Okay, I'm going to ask you another question. There are internet conspiracy theories right now that abound having to do with cubes.
Yeah, that's something I got to do more research in. That's one of the aspects.
We can't research everything.
Yeah.
But it's an aspect of what we're talking about with possibly Saturn, but also with the book on Petra that we're planning to write.
Right. And a link between Petra, the black cube, and Saturn being behind this whole thing. Mm-hmm.
And the fact, and here's the thing. Now, the monoliths in Arthur C. Clarke's books were not cubes, but they were pictured as big black somethings. Mm-hmm. And they were actually communication. They were portals.
Right.
In 2001: A Space Odyssey, in the book, it was not Jupiter, it was Saturn.
Right.
That was emitting these monoliths to upgrade other civilizations. This is a panspermia tale. And it has to do with, if you've never seen the series, or read them, I highly recommend just read the books. But the whole idea is that it's leading to the Übermensch, to the Superman, because they're going to alter man's DNA. Once again, they've been messing with it the whole time. They're like the engineers in the Alien series.
Right.
In Prometheus.
And that's the goal of the New Age movement, including the Fraternitas Saturni.
Exactly.
Is elevating humanity to human 2.0. Mm-hmm. But interestingly, remember in 2004 when Cassini saw Saturn.
That's right. The 8-sided,
it found,
or 6-sided, I mean.
The hexagon on the pole of Saturn.
Yeah.
But when you look at a cube, if you take a cube and then rotate it slightly and then look at it as a 2-dimensional figure, it essentially put a point, one of the points of the cube straight at you, it looks like a hexagon.
Yeah.
So there are those who say, well, see, this is just a representation of
a 2D representation of a cube.
Right.
Well, that could be that could be argued, yes.
Mm-hmm. So, and of course, there are various black cubes out there around the world that you might find in other contexts.
You'll see them in storylines.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see the cubes that are in the Star Trek series. You see
the Borg.
There's an episode of a couple of episodes of the Doctor Who that have cubes as the main storyline.
Right. And then you've got Rubik.
Don't even get me started on that.
The maddening cube. But is there something?
Kaaba is what, and you'll find out when our book about Petra is actually released, probably next year after next.
Mm-hmm.
We've got lots of projects. Our whiteboards are full of things.
No, so many projects. Right. The what is there about the cube? When you go into Petra, you see these cubes outside Petra, which now are called Jinn blocks, but that's not what the ancient Nabateans called them. Mm-hmm. They were markers for tombs. There were some of their wealthy citizens were buried beneath those cubes in shaft graves. But the cube, I think, the cube is what represented their chief god, Dushara.
Yes, exactly.
Who I argue in Bad Moon Rising was just their name, their incarnation of Baal, the storm god. Mm-hmm. So, and in fact, the Muslims themselves recognize that the chief god of the Kaaba at the time Muhammad arrived on the scene was Hubal, which scholars have said, no, it's just taken from a Syrian dialect from that era, just means the Baal. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, the pieces fit together. The evidence fits together. I go into more depth in the book, of course. But so again, you've got this cube and the connection possibly to Saturn, and this idea that somehow that's the key that will lead humanity to the next stage in our evolution, that we will be as gods. And interestingly, the
best upgrade is simply to be covered by the blood of Christ.
Right. We're all promised a
great upgrade.
Yeah. Physical resurrection.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
1 Corinthians 15.
Exactly.
Interesting, though, that Clark, coming back to Space Odyssey, that the change was made in the movie from Saturn to Jupiter. From Saturn to Jupiter, because both of those are involved in this transformation that they're trying to create. That the previous age, we all remember the song from the musical Hair, the age of Aquarius. Mm-hmm. Astrologers don't agree. Some say it began in the 15th century. So others say it won't start until like the 34th century. But most of them agree that we probably entered it sometime in the 20th century. But the age of Pisces, which preceded it, according to astrologers, was governed by the planet Jupiter, whereas the age of Aquarius is governed by the planet Saturn.
Ah.
So,
well, I've often said that I think that those things really started in the 18th century with the Enlightenment.
Oh, I agree. And there was really suddenly this huge interest in, especially among the European countries, and I include America in the European countries, founded by people of European descent. This fascination with the occult and spiritism and spiritualism that rejected the truth and the historicity of the Bible. But isn't it curious that when you go back 2,000 years to when Jupiter was supposedly the head of the pantheon for the Roman Empire, which is one of three great empires around the time of Jesus, and you still had the Persian Empire, which was very powerful, and of course the Chinese, even though there wasn't much contact with them, would have argued, hey, over here, because the Chinese were, in their own right an empire. But even though Jupiter was the official head of the pantheon for the Roman Empire, which stretched from Persia to Britain, the common people were worshiping Saturn as the chief god. And the Phoenicians were worshiping Baal Hammon. And there were still a lot of Greeks worshiping Kronos. I mean, the Saturnalia has been argued, as the...
I can hear Sam in the background. He needs to go outside. I can tell him.
So I guess we're going to have to wrap. Well, we're almost at an hour anyway.
I know. He's telling us that.
Yeah, we could go on for several more hours. But bottom line is, the spirit realms have been playing multi-layer chess with us. And
but here's the thing. Compared to what the Lord God Almighty is playing, they're playing rudimentary checkers.
Right, and that's the thing. We don't need to play on their board.
No.
Greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world.
Exactly. And because we have that promise, Derek and I, we often laugh. If you listen to the archives of PID Radio, we're often really laughing because we know the end from the beginning. We know that war has already been won. It's already concluded. It's just that the fallen realm hasn't realized it yet. They somehow think that they can still outfox the Lord.
Yeah, but Psalm 2, beginning at verse 4, he who sits in the heavens laughs, the Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill.
Amen. Amen. That's one of my favorite Psalms, by the way. Isn't that the one that begins with,
why do the nations
rage and imagine a vain thing?
Yep, exactly right. So when we start talking about things like this, or you start considering what's going on in the world around you, yes, it's disturbing. Yes, we take it seriously. But just remember, it is a vain thing.
It is.
The Lord holds them in derision. A day is coming when he will restore justice, and woe unto them on that day.
Amen to that. That's a great way to end up. Well, thank you for joining us for this, special PID radio. We don't know if we'll do another one right away. This was kind of fun, so I've missed it.
Me too. But check it out at PIDradio.com. And of course, you'll find our weekly Bible study, gilberthouse.org.
We have a PID radio page at Facebook.
We do. And tonight on A View from the Bunker, VFTB.net, the guest is Joe Taylor, who's the director and curator of the Mount Blanco Fossil Museum, talking about why the numbers in the official histories don't add up.
Ah, that'll be a good one.
So until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
Unveiling the ancient realms of demonic kings and Satan's battle plan for Armageddon. Skywatch TV is proud to announce 2 new special offers. The Veneration Collection with optional Red Wing Saga series. First, in Derek and Sharon Gilbert's new groundbreaking book, Veneration, you will learn how the giants of old shaped the worldview and religion of the Hebrews, and the role they will play in the end times. How veneration of the dead brought disaster on the Israelites, concealed references of ancestor worship among the Canaanites, and so much more. But for a limited time only, when you purchase Veneration from Skywatch TV, you'll also receive Realms of the Dead, Book 6 in the Red Wing Saga from Sharon K. Gilbert, that explores the true historical link between Mount Hermon and Jack the Ripper. The key characters of this supernatural thriller will face their most terrifying challenge yet, as a powerful new watcher has joined the confrontation that could bring forth the Antichrist and the end of days. But that's not all. You'll also receive the brand new DVD documentary, The Search for the Raphaim, where Derek and Sharon Gilbert take you on a guided tour of the Holy Land, ground zero in the long war with the fallen realm. You will see mysterious Gilgal Raphaim created for the veneration of the dead, the plains of Moab, where worshiping the god of the underworld brought disaster on Israel, and bonus teachings by guests like Pastor Carl Gallups and Messianic Rabbi Zev Parat. And for a limited time only, you'll receive absolutely free the brand new reprinting of the original 1921 classic work, Immortality and the Unseen World, which reveals the Hebrew concepts of the supernatural realm, death, angels, and demons. Sold separately, this exclusive offer retails for $90. Yours now for only $35 plus shipping and handling. But wait, now you have the option to upgrade and expand your collection by including all 5 previously released books in the Red Wing Saga, where you'll learn spiritual warfare through gripping stories with characters you'll love. The expanded collection, which includes all 8 books and The Search for the Rephaim DVD documentary, holds a retail value of $190. Yours now for your donation of only $100 plus shipping and handling. So don't delay. Order the Veneration Collection with optional Red Wing Saga series now. Available at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985.
Thanks for listening. PID Radio is a production of the PID Radio Network, a division of Gilbert House. Please visit our website at PIDradio.com, where you'll find show notes and links to connect with us on Twitter and Facebook. We wish to thank all those who help undergird and underwrite our ministry through prayers, feedback, and donations. To contact us directly, email us at radio@peeringintodarkness.com. Opening music adapted from The Alchemist's Tower by Kevin MacLeod, www.incompetech.com.
Closing music, New Day Coming by Steve Grace, stevegrace.com. Content, copyright Gilbert House, and is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 Unported License. For more information, see creativecommons.org.
Gonna step up to the microphone, say it loud and clear. A better day is coming soon to get us out